Did you go to the soup kitchen? And if you have volunteered with an organization, it would be helpful if you had a letter from the organization. They played Santa Claus every Christmas for the last 6 years. They were an elf. I have gotten to the point in my courtroom where I have, I go down through a list of things. Did you give any gently used clothes to any organization? Did you put any money in the red kettle? And sometimes I've gone down 10 things, finally get to the red kettle. Oh yeah, I put some money in the red kettle. Well, they're exhaling and so am I. But it helps your case if you can show that you have done something for society. Do not get up there and tell me or any other judge, I was innocent, but my mama told me to go ahead and plead because her nerves were bad, and this was the best deal that it was in. And if you went to trial, you might. All that's water under the bridge. That conversation has long been over with. So don't even go into that. The only question is, what have you done to get back to society? In the state system, you have to have, if you went to prison, you have to have been offered parole for 5 years. Probation, my understanding is you also have to be off for 5 years. Now the attorneys have said, and I know that's the way the law was, and most of the judges probably don't know, but 5 years from being placed on probation. The law has been changed. All of it wasn't a benefit. We have done, I think this is our 4th forum for the UAW at UAW Centers, and we were asked to do one on Saturday for the afternoon shift. When you are applying, you have to get first of all, you have to have a felony or 2 misdemeanors. We have had people who've come in and they have shown us their record. And one young lady said, I went to apply for an expungement. They told me I couldn't get one because I didn't have a felony. So I asked her, well, show me what you have. There are special programs in the courts. And if you have been placed on those programs, you may not have a felony conviction. I'm going to go through some of them. The one that is most well known is what we call the Homes Youthful Trainee Act or HYDA. If at the time you committed the offense and you were 20 to 17, and in the state of Michigan, if you're 17 years old, you're automatically charged with a felony. Automatically. 18 to vote, 21 to buy a living. Okay, but 17 to be convicted of a felony. If you were 17 to 20, and it was not a life offense, it was not a sex offense, you may have been placed on what we call the HYDA program. Under the HYDA program, you can be placed on probation or in prison for up to 3 years to successfully complete your term of probation, successfully complete your term of incarceration. Your file is sealed. You do not have a felony conviction. You should not be reporting yourself as having a felony conviction. And I've had young people who've violated on probation for one reason or another. And I said, well, have you got a job? They said, well, every time I say I got a felony, nobody hires me. I said, baby, you're on HYDA. You don't have a felony. When you fill out the application, they say, have you been convicted of a felony? Check the no box. Domestic violence. There is a provision in the domestic violence statute where you can be placed on probation for up to a year. Successfully complete the probation, they dismiss the case. Some folks have been placed on that program. You don't have a conviction. Diversion. In some cases where money is the issue, I stole a car, you know, the damages weren't that great, so you actually could pay them off in 18 months. You were placed on diversion. This file was sealed. You don't have a felony conviction. They don't do it much in my building, in the circuit court anymore, but in the district courts, sometimes they will take a plea under advisement. All right, you're going to plead guilty today. We're going to give you probation. You got to do these 5 things. Come back in a year. You prove you did those 5 things. We dismiss the charges. You don't have a conviction. So the first thing you need to know is what is on your record. You think it's one thing, it may be another. So you need a certified copy of your record. In order to get a cert, and I'm going into the attorney's speech a little bit, so I'm not trying to steal all her thunder before she gets here. In order to get a certified copy, go to the courthouse where the conviction was entered and request a copy of your record. Right? You ask for a copy of your record. And in most cases, if it's been 5 years, the file is not sitting in the courthouse. They're going to have to order it. So you may have to come back in a couple of days to pick it up. Once you get a copy of your record, you should have an attorney ideally look at it. Because just like the young lady that came to me and was crying because she couldn't get an expungement, she didn't know how to read the record. In addition, and what our advice, because I sent her to one of the attorneys, I said, okay, this is what it looks like to me, go check with one of the lawyers, maybe I got it wrong. If you find yourself in that situation and you're having employment problems, you need to get a copy of the dismissal. So that if the issue comes up in a job interview, if the issue comes up after you've been on the job, you can provide them with a certified, a copy of the court order showing that the case had been dismissed, that it was dismissed. Once you have a copy of your record, if you can have an attorney look at it, if there's only one something on there, all right, if there's only one something on there, that kind of makes it a little clearer. Sex offenses cannot be expunged. Life offenses cannot be expunged. That's your homicides, your armed robberies, your kidnapping, hot carjacking. Life offenses cannot be expunged. Under the new statute, you can have 1 felony or 2 what they call minor misdemeanors. The question as to what's a minor misdemeanor gets a little ticklish. And 2 weeks ago, I had an attorney who filed a case. Because one of the things that the attorney always talks about in the presentation is driving while license suspended can be a problem. But I had an attorney who filed a case, and it's being argued that the legislatures were talking about misdemeanors, that if you get 2 or 3 of them, the penalty gets higher. If you get 3 drunk drivers, the 3rd one is a felony. If you get 3 domestic violences, the 3rd one is a felony. And the argument is that other misdemeanors that do not raise your possibility of a higher offense are not considered. So you may want to, if you find yourself in that position, that's an argument that can be presented. Once you have a copy of your record, and jump in if I miss any of this, because I haven't practiced law in 18 years. I sit there and when they get to me, they're finished. You have to have 2 copies of your fingerprints. In Detroit, you would get that from the police department located on the corner of the Boulevard and Woodward. And you get 2 cards, 2 fingerprint cards. Because you have to send your application to the state police, and you have to send a copy to the state attorney general's office. Because they have an opportunity to review. She's here. Good. 94. And I'm going to let her take over. And she does them, so she does them more regularly. Like I said, I'm on the back end. I'm gonna let you jump in as soon as you catch your breath. The State Attorney General has a right to review the record and to object or not object. And just because they object doesn't necessarily mean you still won't get the expungement. Right? And the state police have to look at the record and determine whether or not they think you qualify or don't qualify based on the number of convictions. Remember, I still got the trump card and the silver bullet, so don't leave, because I'm going to tell you how that can work out as well.
Will we have time for questions at the end?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to go?
I'm ready. Good morning, everyone.
And this is Attorney Wanda Evans, and she generally does the presentation on the expungement. And you start from the top if you want to, since you don't know where I began or where I end.
I shall. Let me just start by apologizing. 94 was closed.
To me,
then I turned the wrong way, so I apologize.
Attorney Evans, to me, I can only speak for myself. Just by you showing up gives, I'll speak for myself, us a chance, me a chance. So you owe me no apology, because I know how the roads are in the state and all around this town.
Thank you for that. Okay. I do expungement seminars with Judge Thomas and Attorney Rohn Mitchell regularly. We do this because we know it's important to our entire community, and the community is Detroit and all of Wayne County and the United States. Because when people are able to clear up things of the past where they have done something and now time has passed, and you ought to be able to come back into society with full rights and not have that constantly hanging over your head, so you can get good jobs. And when people get good jobs, then all of us are whole. And that's why I do that. And I'm sure that's the same sentiment of Judge Thomas and Rohn Mitchell. Expungements. I do have a few applications, and okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. The law has recently changed to expand just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And we'll talk about that in a second. To allow more people to have their criminal record set aside. Currently, this is the law. And I don't have a checkoff form with me, so think about it like this. If you have some paper and pen, kind of follow me, because I'm really going through a checkoff list in my mind and in my presentation, so that you can determine whether or not you qualify to apply to have your criminal record set aside, or someone in your family. So that's how I present. This is the current law. You can apply, submit an application to have your criminal conviction set aside if you have only one felony and 2 minor misdemeanors. One felony and 2 minor misdemeanors. The one felony cannot be connected with a lifetime sentence. Murder, armed robbery, CSC, which is rape, those type of offenses. If you could have gotten sentenced to life, you cannot set that aside. The 2 minor misdemeanor or offenses called now had to have happened when you were under 21. Under 21. Now that helps some people who did not get what we call diversion, HIDA, when they were 21 and under because of age. That's the Home Youthful Training Act. Some people may have slipped through the cracks and not got the benefit of that set aside a diversion program. So that's why that minor offenses is important now. Under the current law, and it changes October 21st of this year, I believe, about the driving while license suspended. That's where I'm going with this one. It changes as of October. But currently, if you have a driving while license suspended, you cannot expunge anything. So if you have one, just hold on, wait till October, and then that's going to change. The law's been changed.
No, I was just gonna say, driving, is that the same as never having a driver's license? Because some people never get them and then get a lot of tickets. Is that the same?
No, you gotta look to see what they charged you with and what you pled guilty to or what you were convicted of. Driving while license suspended, DWLS.
Okay.
I don't mean no operator's permit.
Okay.
That's different. That is different.
Okay.
Specifically, driving while license suspended. And operating while under the influence of alcohol. If you have any of those two charges, that's the barrier to you applying for an expungement.
Except for the silver bullet.
We'll come back to that. That's the end. I know you just
Oh,
talked
the
about
book, I
that.
was about to say, man.
Just hold on. And like I said, remember I said, keep in mind the way I'm presenting is like a checkoff sheet. I'm going down a list of what applies. So think about it in your head. And I may not have gotten to your situation yet, but I'm getting there. So under the current law, if you have those two, and I drill people about this when I'm talking to them. If you got a driving while license suspended, DWLS, or driving while under the influence, or driving while under the influence of alcohol.
OWI or DUI, which one? Either one.
Either one.
Okay.
You cannot even apply. They're going to tell you no. Okay? The other thing, it has to have, 5 years have to pass from the date of the sentencing, the date you were sentenced, or if you got some jail time or prison time and you got out from the date you were released on parole. You were paroled out. So count 5 years from the date you were paroled out of jail, prison, or the date you were sentenced. 5 years to the date. So it was May 24th of 2000. You can not apply until May 24th, 2005. Okay? Now, what you want to do, you're going to first, now for those people, I'll go this way. For those people who have a driving while license suspended or driving while under the OWIL, effective October 21st of this year, that driving while license suspended no longer stops you from applying. But it doesn't go back. It's not retroactive, okay? So if you got one of those offenses, just wait till October this year, October 21st, I believe it is, and then apply, okay? In regard to operating while under the influence, the silver bullet, or any other offense that will prevent you from applying, see a lawyer, because that lawyer can.
Tell them my silver bullet that get up and leave.
That lawyer can negotiate. I'm not finished. Can negotiate on your behalf. She put a stop to that silver bullet, and I stopped. I backed it on up.
Because I know that get up and leave, and they'll miss out on some other information.
Right, and we don't want you to leave because we want you to be around for the question and answer. And let me just say right now, I do have to leave at around 11:30, and Paula Ramsey is going to come in my place and answer questions for you on the expungement issues if you have some. Because I have to get to another commitment. They kind of clash today. You have my number and Paula Ramsey's number too. She also does expungements. And the reason why October 21st is important because it also eliminates some of those driver's responsibility fees. Now and
that's a whole nother form.
That's a whole other form. But the driver's license responsibility fees and the driving while under the influence came through the legislature together through the state representatives and senators. The Republicans will claim that, but I've been told that the Democrats started it and so on and so on. But we got it, right? So that benefits people. What you want to do is, when you see the application, first thing you want to do is go to the county, the court where your conviction occurred. So if it's in Wayne County, or Oakland County, or Macomb County, Washington County, Genesee County, you have to go to that court and get a copy of your record. Get a certified copy of your conviction is what it is. While you're there, also get a register of action sheet to show all of your history, okay? Because you want to have that for the lawyer if you're going to bring it to a lawyer, so we can see what has gone on. Because there may be some type of diversion on your record, and you think it was a conviction, okay? A diversion, HIDA, 76911 if it was some type of domestic violence situation, or 7411. I might be getting the statute numbers confused. If it was domestic violence, sometimes they'll take those and put it under a plea under advisement, meaning if you complete probation or pay a restitution and do community service, your record, they dismiss it. It doesn't show up, or it gets sealed. So the general public should not be able to see it. If you have any of those on your record, the lawyer needs to see it. You may have that plus another felony. If you have diversion, that doesn't stop you. So you still can apply, even though you got some diversions and you still have one felony or even one misdemeanor. I shouldn't keep saying felony because there could be a misdemeanor. You can expunge those too.
There's also one for possession of drugs. There's a diversion program for possession of drugs. Not possession with intent to deliver,
Right.
but possession.
I think is that the 769?
That's 7411.
The 7411. See, I told you I'm getting mixed up, but I knew. So just keep that in mind. The reason why that's important because expungement or the set aside is considered a discretion or a privilege, not a right. So the judge is going to look at the entire record and say, yes, he or she has been rehabilitated, we'll give it to him or her. They could deny it. So you want to make sure that you have everything in order. You want to know what was diverted, what was sealed, and then what's kind of open out there that you want to set aside, okay? Because that judge could say, well, he's had or she's had 4 diversions prior, and now they want to set this aside. I'm not going to do it. Don't get discouraged, because there's always a way around stuff. Then you come in with your letters of recommendations, showing what you've done in the community, how you've been helpful, you're contributing to society, why you should have this set aside. All those things are important. What kind of community service you've done. You know, what are you doing in the church? All that's helpful, very helpful. And I always tell people to give me 2 letters and give it to me in my hand before we go into court, because I need to see it and see how it's written and what it's saying. Because now each judge is different. So you want to talk about, you want to know who you're going before. You can always go back to the judge that sentenced you or their replacement. And so you want to get a feel for what they're looking for, okay? So if you've got, again, going back to the diversion, the set aside.
Come on, have a seat.
I don't want to take how you go.
If you had diversion, that doesn't stop you from okay, so we're going to move on. I've been told to keep moving. That's what you're saying to me. So, okay, so I said you're going to go to the court where you were sentenced, get a certified copy of your record, also get the register of action. Then you're going to go to make sure you just have the 1 felony or misdemeanor on your record. Then you're going to go to the state police and get 2 hard copies of your fingerprints. And when you go to get fingerprinted, tell them it's for expungement purposes. And it costs about $10, maybe $25, something like that. And the closest one for Detroit is on West Grand Boulevard and Woodward, 7301 Woodward.
Robert, let everybody know.
Is it the state police or the Detroit police?
State police.
See there? I'm glad she came.
That's not on what, I think that's Detroit, but isn't the state like kind of like right there behind the Secretary of
Yeah, it
State
is
right
by the
there?
Secretary of
Yeah,
State.
that's the Detroit police
Yeah.
on that corner.
Thank you for that. It's on West Grand Boulevard and 2nd.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think they're only open on Thursdays. And I think they have certain times, so you might want to call first. I don't have that address. Get a certified copy of your fingerprints, and then on the back of the card, if you're doing it yourself, write the address where you want them to respond to you. Make sure that's on the back of the cards. Always make copies of those cards, because you're going to send those cards to the Michigan State Police along with a check or money order made out to the state of Michigan for $50. So you're going to send to the state police a copy of your fingerprint cards, because they're going to check to see if you have any other convictions or pleas anywhere in the world. It will show up. State, federal, New York, Colorado is going to show up. And then once the state police responds, they're going to give a sheet of paper and it's going to say no priors, nothing came, showed up. And then you can take that and send that letter to the Attorney General's office and the prosecutor's office in the county that you were convicted in. And then the Attorney General does their own search. And they'll come back and send a letter that says we don't have any problem, no contest, or they'll object. Now what you need to know about the Attorney General's office, when they do object, and this happens regularly, sometimes they'll say, we found this. And oftentimes people use other people's name and all kind of stuff. You get it? So if that were to happen, if it were to come back from the Attorney General that you got something else out there, and you say, no, that was my brother, I didn't do that, then we're going to have to go and get a certified copy of your fingerprints and compare the fingerprint card of the person that was arrested with yours, okay, with your fingerprints, to prove that it wasn't you. And sometimes we have to go file a motion and go back into court, okay? And then we can negotiate that. I know I'm probably being a little vague because that's something that we lawyers do and it's so detailed. I can't tell you every single thing step by step, how to do it. And then after that, if the Attorney General says it's okay, then you'll contact, in Wayne County, usually just call the clerk's office and tell them you got the letter, and they'll give you a court date to go before the judge. And usually the prosecutor goes along with what the Attorney General says, because they don't do their own investigation. That has not been my experience, that the prosecutor's office does their own experience. It's usually the Attorney General. And many times you can contact that Attorney General. As I said, if someone else used your name and got arrested, we might be able to negotiate with the Attorney General right then to say, you might want to check into this a little bit more. I don't think they've got a big interest in trying to just stop people from getting set-asides. It's kind of a routine thing that they do, their first check, okay? And then you get a court hearing. And once you get a court hearing, you're going to go before that particular judge with your letters of recommendations and the letter from the Attorney General that says it's okay. Have your order in hand if you're doing it yourself, and the back of the packet has an order, and you have it filled out. Yeah, you can pass it out. And you have it filled out. So the judge can sign the order right then, you have it in your hand, and then you take it to the clerk's office, and then you're going to also make sure that that order is sent to the state of Michigan so they can put it on their lien record to show that it's been set aside and sealed, okay? That's important. Let me just back up a little bit on the application. It's a one-page application. You don't fill it out until you get your documents in your hand, because you have to put down the correct conviction and the date of sentence. You also have to indicate that you have not applied for an expungement before, and it asks for that on there. If you think that something is a little off or wrong and you might get denied, but you can correct it, go withdraw that application. You told me that? Okay, withdraw the application before you get before the judge, okay? Because it's important, because you can only apply one time.
How do you withdraw an application?
I'm going to tell you when she gets finished.
Okay. And I'm gonna leave that to the judge. So she's passed out the application. It's it looks thick, but it's a one sheet application. All the rest is instructions. Follow it step by step by step by step. I'm going to leave some cards out. I think I left some on the counter, so if you got questions later, If you really need to hire somebody, you can. Do keep in mind, if you call me, I will give me a couple of days to respond to you. And I say that because I am campaigning. And so I leave at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't get back until 10:30, 11 at night. And it's hard sometimes to return calls. But the reason we do this is hopefully that you can determine already, based on what I said, and the application, whether or not you are eligible. And we do this in a large form so that we don't have to do one-on-ones as often. Okay. Thank you so very much. I don't know if she's going to take answers.
I'm going to do a couple of things. We're going to do not a whole lot of questions because I'm going to save a lot of them to the end. When you were told that you can only file for an expungement once. And what I try to get people to understand is when you're standing, because ideally what we're trying to do is to give you enough information and the form that if possible you can do this yourself. All right, and the reason again being is because we understand that so many people who have a felony conviction cannot get a job, so you may not have the money to hire an attorney. You should also know that Access organization does have a program to assist people in applying for expungement. They're not doing a lot of them real fast. So we thought that, okay, we bring folks in and we give them the basic information, we can maybe get more folks going more quickly. But if you want to check with Access, they are, at the Wayne County, they have a program that they are assisting people with the expungements as well. When we say withdraw your application, as you are standing there and you're trying to explain to the judge, you know, I was with the Boy Scouts, I helped that, I've been a deacon at the church, we feed the senior citizens, and the judge doesn't look like they're, you know, leaning your way. You know, they get a bad day that day and they're just not giving enough expungements or set aside. They're not hearing you. You know, you're trying to tell it, but you're so nervous you can't get it out right. Then what you want to do before the judge rules, before the judge says yes or no, you want to say, okay, judge, I withdraw my application. You filed the petition, you can withdraw the petition. All right, and make sure you say, I withdraw my application. Thank you, you know, I'm gonna try this again some other time, but say I withdraw before the judge rules. All right? I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and then I'm gonna let you come up on the federal side. And I've seen quite a few people, I've seen more people applying. I've seen more people applying. And because more people are applying, I'm seeing where sometimes the attorneys are trying some new things. All right? When you are looking at your driving while license suspended, or you're looking at your driving under the influence, especially if you only had one. See, this is the silver bullet, but I'm gonna go ahead. I wish y'all gonna stay. There is a process that has not been well advertised and talked about, where you can actually go back to the court where you received your conviction and make application to have the conviction changed. All right? I know none of you in this room heard of that before.
Nope.
Yeah. You can, and one of the cases that came before me dealt with an issue on domestic violence in particular. And it was 10, 12 years ago. And the young lady, the prosecutor will have to go back, and the prosecutor has to agree to change the conviction. And it could even be in a different county. I've had one that came in from a different county. They went back to the judge. They asked to have it changed. The judge changed it to something that would allow them to come before me with the felony and actually get the expungement. With the domestic violence case, the victim was like, the man got a job hold up. Okay? He gets this thing set aside. He got a job held up. He get job, I get child support. Oh yeah, change it. Change it to whatever you got to change it to, but change it. All right? And So just because you had a conviction for a particular offense, especially if you have stayed out of trouble, you know, I tell folks got a conviction 20 years ago. Since then, you know, they've been the deacon at the church, they volunteered at the school, all of these things. So if you, one of the things that you may want to look at once you get your record, if you have another offense, is you may number one, come under the program, but number two, you may be able to have it retroactively changed to another offense, which would not disqualify you from the expungement. And some folks have just come in, and I stated earlier that I am now getting motions and arguments from attorneys that say that the particular misdemeanor does not fall under what the legislature intended to stop a person from getting an expungement. I want to stress this. A lot of folks down through the years and up until today, they have been embarrassed by the fact that they or a family member have a conviction. Right? And generally when I speak, even if it's not on expungements, I speak to a lot of the entry groups. I will ask the question, if there's anybody in the room who does not have a parent, a brother, a sister, a child, niece, or nephew, first cousin, who has not been convicted of a felony, raise your hand. You notice my hand didn't go up either. Michigan has had so many convictions as compared to other states that even Greenpeace has come into the state and made inquiry. Now don't get me wrong. Not only will I convict you, I will send you to prison. So don't misunderstand. But once you have done your time, I also believe if you have been rehabilitated, you ought to be able to get back into society. Because it hurts the entire community when we have so many people who cannot get jobs. That means you have folks with a job trying to support 3-4 households. And that makes it very economically depressed for the entire area. The law was changed last year. I've been talking to some folks in Lansing, from the governor on down. I don't care who the person is. I don't care what party you're in. If I want something, I don't mind asking. But if you want the law changed, if your situation can't be addressed today, then you need to be at community forum when folks come to you and say, vote for me. And you need to ask them, what are you going to do about making expungements more available for people who have been rehabilitated? Because if you don't raise the question, I promise you nobody else will. And if you don't make it a campaign issue, don't look for any results. So if it's not important to you, it's not important to anybody else. And this is campaign season. You got all these folks running around here running for state rep. You got folks running around here for state senate. They changed the law. If every time they go to a forum, if every time they come before a group, I don't care if it's at your church, excuse me. Okay, if you don't mind, I'd just like to know. If you don't make it an issue, it won't be an issue. We are going to go with the federal pardons. The federal pardons. That's a whole different ballgame. All right? And then after we do the federal pardons, I have another handout, and then we're going to start our question and answers.
Thank you.
This is Attorney Rohn Mitchell.
Hello, everybody. I first want to apologize that I'm going to have to leave a little early. I have an engagement that's supposed to be starting at 11 o'clock. It was a previous commitment, but I felt compelled to come here. I felt it was my duty to my community to come here and talk to you about federal pardons. And also because I know what kind of person Judge Thomas is. You know, she might not get up here, and I don't think I've ever heard her toot her own horn, but she's committed to our community. She's committed to Wayne County and our country. She's committed to you. She's running for election. And what I want to say about that is we live in a representative form of government. And what that means is if you don't go out and vote, then you've given your consent to whoever has been elected. You want to elect people that have your interests at heart, that think like you. I'm also running for judge, 3rd Circuit. I'd like to talk to you today real briefly about petitions for pardon. You need to, let me also say, Wanda Evans, which you've already heard, she's running for 3rd Circuit.
No.
36th District Court. And she also is a very important person, I think, in our community and would help our pardons. A pardon is not an expungement. Pardon is not an expungement. An expungement is, when you obtain it, it wipes it off your record. You don't have to mention that you had that crime. We're living in some rough times. I don't know if you recognize it, but there's a battle going on. There's an economic battle going on. It's raging through our community. It's devastated Detroit. It's devastated other communities. And it's really difficult to get a job. I'm not talking about for someone that has a conviction. I'm talking about regular people. I just had a case where a lady's losing her house in Farmington. It's out there in Farmington. $450,000 house. They were knocking on her door to evict her. They had already gone through the whole foreclosure bit. And I've been able to get that thing into 6th Circuit to give her some additional time. And since I've been able to do that, the bank has come to me and said, you know, we're ready to, you know, renegotiate our loan from $450 to $250, $225. So what I'm saying is that there's an economic battle going on, and you don't need the disability that you may have with a conviction. Back in 2010, 2009, 2010, the different governments were having money problems, and they asked the federal government to get more involved. The federal government got more involved. I went and I watched panels where Benny was there, and the federal government was there, the DEA, and they said they're going to work hand in hand. They've always worked hand in hand, but they've increased their presence. We have a lot more people that are being convicted. If you want a federal pardon, it's available. But it's not available to anybody and everybody. It's available for people that accept responsibility for their crime and want to make atonement. You know, they have served their time, they've done everything the law requires, but when they go to get a job, the person that's getting the job looks at someone that doesn't have a conviction and they look at you. Who are they going to choose? If you want to get a license, certain license, if you get a pardon, it will remove those disabilities. So how do you get that pardon? The Office of the Pardon Attorney will make that decision and forward his recommendation to the President of the United States. The President of the United States gives it. And there's no recourse behind what the President decides. But when you make this application, it's a 15-page application. Extensive application. Doesn't cost anything to you. It costs a lot of money for the FBI. They come out and they investigate. You can't make application until you have been, 5 years from the date that you were released from custody, detention, or 5 years from the date of sentencing if you weren't confined. Okay? So if you were confined, it's 5 years from the date of confinement, And if you were on some sort of supervised home, whatever, it's 5 days from the end of that. Or if you weren't confined, 5 years. I keep saying 5 days. If it was none of that, it's after you would consider it your probation period. It's after all of that time, 5 years after that, you can make an application. When you make application, this is a very long process. There's no time limit for them to complete their process because it's the FBI, and they give a very thorough investigation. I would suggest, and I heard Sister Counsel say, and I've heard the judge say, you can do this by yourself. I would say, get an attorney, especially if you're doing the pardons. You don't have to. You don't have to. But if you forget that you were convicted 20 years ago, or you forget about that little misdemeanor for a federal pardon, they can construe that to mean that you purposely omitted it to lead them off. And they can sentence you to 5 years. They can charge you $250,000. So in this particular thing, they're going to do a thorough investigation, not just of your criminal background. So you should go get your criminal background, or have your attorney make sure he has your complete criminal background and your credit history for them, for the pardons. They will go and talk to your neighbors. Very thorough investigation. You can provide, you have to provide some sort of references. These references, they're going to actually talk to you. Okay? So they'll provide their statement, notarized statement, and they'll go out and they'll investigate that. Your reasons for seeking the pardon. We already talked about the disabilities that occur when you get the conviction. They want to, again, they want to know that you atone for your crime. They also want to know what you've been doing since your conviction. They want to know that, you know, what charities you've been involved with, what community organizations you've been involved with. They want to know what you're doing positive, what meritorious actions you've taken to help our community or some individual. Or, you see what I'm saying? You just can't go down there and say, I need this pardon because I can't get a job. Trust me, it's not going to happen. So what am I saying? I'm saying if you've done something like that, you don't have to go out and do these things, but you need to find a way to give back to our community. Okay?
Attorney Mitchell, you said the Office of the Pardon?
Office of the Pardon Attorney.
Office of the Pardon Attorney, I forgot.
Correct. If you have, and I'm going to have to kind of wrap this up, but if you have a conviction from like a military, like the Army, the Navy, you wouldn't send that to the pardon attorney. You would send it to the Secretary of the Navy or the JAG, to the organization.
I got no convictions, but once you said credit report, I'm out the window. I'm going to prison. I'm good. I represent 3,000 people across the street, but once you said credit, I'm out.
But in terms of this application, they're not looking for rich people. You'll still be able to get that. They're looking at you have some credit obligation, you're doing something to handle that. You can make a payment arrangement, that's going to be okay. They can't deny you because you're normal people. We all have that. I got some things that are going on. I'm handling it the best I can. So don't let that dissuade you. I am going to have some cards passed out. The reason I'm having those cards passed out is because my number's on it. You can definitely contact me. There are a number of other things about, and I have applications here. You can pick up the applications. And I also have a little list here that tells you about oh yes, the president does the pardons. Okay, so it's similar to the expungement.
You're talking the real president.
The real president.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Okay, President Obama is executive branch, head of the executive. He does the pardons. And if you turn your pardon in now, let me just tell you about all the presidents. they all give pardons. Okay? The pardon doesn't absolve you of the crime. It just says the government has pardoned you, has forgiven you. And so it helps when you go to get that job. But if you turn it in now, and President Obama is not re-elected, and you get another president who may not give you a pardon, who doesn't want to give pardons, or low pardons, you might want to withdraw your application. There's no recourse to it. You can turn it back in, but it takes so long, you might want to withdraw. Let me just say one more thing that she reminded me of by just saying President Obama. President Obama has given the majority of his pardons, I went back and researched, has been for controlled substance, for marijuana. Much, much, much more than any other president. And so I think that's going to help us in our community. Views about marijuana has changed. Views about controlled substances have changed. He's given people a chance to be a productive citizen and a chance to clear up your record. So I want to turn, yes. This is for federal cases only. Federal pardons are for federal cases only. All right? Any other questions? Can I get my questions now?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Both of you gonna leave. You're gonna leave me all here by myself, but I'll do my best.
Are there any questions?
On the federal part.
Just on the federal part.
On the federal part.
Well, even if I don't have a question, if you guys want, leave me, after everybody here gets one, your cards, because I got no problem supporting you. I'm the president across the street at one of the facilities. For you people to come, in my opinion, on your own time, even though you campaign, it doesn't matter to me. You came on your own time, on a Saturday, away from your families. I live in Wayne County. I'm voting for you, and I just learned all of you except for the judge today. I've seen you before. I don't know where I've seen you, but in here or someplace campaigning on your own time on the weekend I saw you, but I can't remember where.
For years.
Okay, leave me some after everybody's get one, because I'm going to support and campaign for you folks.
One more thing about the pardons that I did forget. It's unlike expungements. You can have multiple offenses. All right.
That's important. That's important. All right, we're gonna before she runs out, we're gonna take questions. And I never tell folks that. I never tell folks I'm running anyway. I have a tendency to get so involved in what I'm doing, and that I don't talk about politics. And I don't want people to think that we're just out here because we're running. We have been doing these expungement forums for at least the last 4 to 5 years, okay? Because it's important. So, and I guess I'm always afraid folks gonna say, well, they only here because they running. No, but we didn't stop doing them either because we were running, all right? Because it's important.